Okay, so the next panel, sticking to the theme of mobile and mobile video, I bring to the stage a man recently voted by the Drum as #1 in mobile. Hands up who's actually voting on that panel. Anyone votes on the mobile #1 for the mobile? Just this chap here. His name is Ben Phillips from Mediacom. He has a, do come up, Ben. And Ben will be joined on stage by a bunch of video and mobile specialists from TubeMogul, Tremor Media, Just in Time OMD, and Film On, and from our very own Dan Wilson. So over to you, Ben. Do come up.
Excellent. Well, hi, good afternoon, and welcome to our panel session today of Mobile, Your Time Has Come. I'm not quite sure if that's a negative or a positive sentiment, so hopefully we shall find that out during the path of our discussions. So consumers are currently watching more and more video than ever before across mobile devices. You know, that much is very apparent to us. As a result, content providers are providing a lot more content, mobile video content to meet this demand. Yes, as advertisers are racing to deliver compelling and relevant advertising. So this panel, the aim of this afternoon is to discuss the ad industry, how it's developing from our points of view, and mobile video solutions and how programmatic will deliver mobile ads at scale. So we'll touch on a few other points. But I'd just like to introduce the panel to you. So we've got Jill Brooke. Jill is the International Sales and Commercial Director at Film On. So with over 20 years of media experience, including time at independent Condé Nast and digital creative media, and having spent the last 6 years spearheading digital startups, she's most recently launched the global sales operation for Film On TV. And next to Jill, we've got Sue Hunt. Sue's the Managing Director of EMEA for Tremor Video. So Sue joined Tremor in 2014 to launch the programmatic business. Now as MD for EMEA, she leads the development of solutions that enable marketers to effectively and efficiently expand reach of video brand performance campaigns and publishers to offer their inventory through programmatic. And a man who needs no introduction, we've got Dan Wilson, the VP Mobile and Video for EMEA at Pubmatic. So Dan has worked within the mobile industry since 2000, and I remember those halcyon days of sending push SMS to green screen devices. Prior to joining Pubmatic, he's held senior and global positions in several leading organisations within the industry. And sitting next to Dan, we've got Nick Reed of TubeMogul. So Nick has worked at TubeMogul and also had quite a longevity in the industry, working back at DoubleClick, I believe, since 1999. It's a veteran phrase we like to use. So Nick's career has taken him with some of the hottest brands across Europe. And next to him, last but definitely not least, we have Alex Newman, so head of mobile for EMEA. He's the Managing Director of Omnicom Media Group's mobile division. He leads its approach towards mobile, and Alex is well known and regarded veteran of the mobile industry. So this is our panel. So kick off on something nice and easy, ad fraud. Okay. So ad fraud represents a massive risk to programmatic video and could cost our industry several billions of dollars this year. So how, as industry individuals, are we going to work together in order for the industry to fight fraud? Nick, you look like you want to take that one.
I'd love to, thanks for that. I don't think it's specific to mobile video or programmatic video. I think it's specific to advertising. Mm-hmm. So therefore I kind of shirk off responsibility on my shoulders because it's not just the programmatic video world. I think it's a challenge for everyone. But I think as an industry, we're geared, or we're starting to kind of gear towards this as we were geared towards brand safety and as we were geared towards transparency. If anything, I believe that softwares help brands and advertisers have more understanding of what's going on in the marketplace in terms of how the media is being bought, both where it's being bought, likewise with viewability, and likewise with ad fraud. And I think some of the work that publishers are starting to kind of engage with when it comes to actually blocking their content from users who subscribe to ad fraud, I think it's a good indictment, and I think it reflects actually the market and where it should go. I also think there's a lack of education from the consumer perspective, expecting the internet to essentially be free. There's a lot of time and investment that very premium publishers and most publishers put into creating content that's relevant, and that takes time and cost. And unfortunately, that cost needs to be subsidised by advertising. I think the gentleman before Chris made a really, really good point at the same time. Advertising needs to be relevant, and advertising needs to kind of truly engage with customers. And I think where publishers are running too many ads that aren't relevant, then there's going to be a backlash from the consumer. So I think there's a balance of equilibrium that needs to be found between a publisher from both a consumer engagement and content perspective, and also from an advertising perspective.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Nick. So when we start to look at viewability, you mentioned there, and I don't want to labour the point too much, but is this something you're having to address at the moment that's coming up, or is it just another hurdle that us media agencies are putting away and battering publishers to come up with measurements?
I think we kind of brought on viewability for the agencies, if I'm pretty honest. I think viewability has been the best thing for the marketplace. What viewability does is create an equilibrium or recalibrate the inventory. And actually what both advertisers and agencies and consumers want is relevance. And actually kind of by bringing on viewability, it looks to cleanse the marketplace by eradicating non-viewable impressions, by perhaps kind of giving much more of an equilibrium in terms of price from a publisher perspective. If publishers are paid the fair price, then perhaps they don't need to cram their pages full of ads. If brands know that their ads are being seen, there's reassurance and therefore more investment. I personally think viewability is probably the best thing that's happened to this marketplace. Because for a long, long time, you would go onto a website, you hear this noise, you scroll 6 down the page, and there'd be an autoplay pre-roll that's sold for £25, it's bought for 36p on display exchange. So viewability brings an understanding around kind of relevance and price that actually is starting to make brands and advertisers recalibrate what their KPIs should be. And a KPI to begin with is my ad being seen, then where's it being seen, and then who's seeing it, and then what's it doing. So I think it's a positive.
And Sue, are these questions that you're hearing asked at the moment, or is it just us panellists that talk about?
No, they're constant themes. I think the importance for me is to keep them as very separate topics. Ad fraud is ad fraud. That's bad actors doing bad, illegal things for their own commercial gain. Viewability, as Nick alluded to, for us is a KPI, it's an engagement metric. I think it's also important that viewability isn't used as a stick for one side to beat the other. You know, the history of Tremor Video and how we work with our demand partners is all about viewability, but it's not to say an ad is only relevant if it gets 100% viewability. If you get your branding, your call to action right, then ads are still very successful on 20 to 30%. It's just important that that metric is consistent, it's reliable, and more to the point, it's understood.
I mean, you raise an interesting point, because I have clients of ours that actually say, if my ad's not 100% viewable, I'm not spending any money on it. And this is an interesting debate that we have quite a lot. So you say viewability is a KPI metric, and our clients will probably say actually KPI is just a prerequisite. And there's probably a bit of a disconnect between that. But I think you also mentioned definition. And I think definition of viewability is key, because I think everybody is using different definitions and it's pretty confusing. I've got, as I said, clients of ours that just read industry trade press and they quote all this stuff back at us that they've read online. And obviously that's their definition of viewability, and they use that as a stick to hit us over the head. And I probably hit you guys over the head with the same stick. And you go back to asking whose responsibility is it to iron these out, and I think it lies everywhere. I mean, Nick touched upon publishers. I think it all starts with the publisher and ways of identifying and stripping out rogue publishers. I think it then moves on to exchanges, SSPs, people who join publishers together. It's their responsibility to keep vetting their inventory. Then it goes into buying platforms, and then it goes into media agencies. I think there's balances and checks that should exist at all levels.
So, Jill, it'd be interesting to get
As
your...
a publisher?
Yeah.
Well, as a publisher, I think it's quite simple. The thing is, do not commit fraud, because, you know, there's so many measurements out there now where you will be caught out and the price is too high. So, I mean, we just have to be in the marketplace and do everything we can to make sure everything we do is above board. And I mean, as a publisher, we've definitely had issues in the past. We went into the marketplace and started an affiliate program with good intentions, but, you know, you can't please everyone. So as a business, we decided to stop putting advertisers with affiliates, and that, you know, helped. In terms of viewability, yeah, of course, it's a metric that's now coming in on a lot of our IOs. Usually people wanting about 70% viewability, so an understanding that you can't deliver 100%. You know, so we do everything we can to just make sure that we can deliver on metrics people put in place. But sometimes, I mean, I would just say that sometimes you've got to question those metrics, because you could have an ad that's, you know, great viewability, but it's not measuring irritability. So, you know, especially on mobile, where, you know, our viewability figures are absolutely fine, you know, because most of our inventory is in-app, and it's very hard to not get a viewable ad on app. You know, you can't escape it once it starts playing.
But I think this is part of the problem. I think as an industry, we haven't got these metrics right, we haven't got these definitions right, and I think it is a moving target. When the viewability conversation first came out, I used to joke that it was started by a smoke-filled room full of TV executives to go and beat the digital industry with. I don't think that anymore, but I think it is on everyone in this room to go and solve.
But viewability doesn't mean an ad has been seen. In your point, Jill, viewability doesn't actually mean an ad has been seen. Viewability means the ad's been given the opportunity to be seen. So, and this is where you kind of get the crux of the argument between the advertiser, if you like, and the publisher. I have a lovely big player, top of page, 100% above the fold. Large player, in view. I have an ad as viewable. I go to another website or another page in the same frame, large player, someone scrolls down within 5 seconds, that ad's not viewable because it's not 50% within 5 seconds. Okay, so it's the same player size, it's the same ad, the same placement, but it's not viewable because the user's scrolled down the page, and the publisher can't do anything about that, the advertiser can't do anything about that. So as a metric, it's kind of, it's a post-serve metric. So when you look at viewability, you need to understand, well, what are the reasons why an ad's not viewable? Is it player size? Is it's been placed below the fold? Has someone decided to tab away or move away? You really need to understand the reasons why an ad's not viewable, rather than kind of just engage in saying that's not viewable, I'm not paying for that.
So bringing it back to programmatic in video, it's the question for Dan again, kind of based on our longevity in the industry, looking at when we first started out sending SMS campaigns. You know, what are the challenges to programmatic video at the moment? What benefits is it bringing us?
I could talk about this. I could probably write a PhD on this, to be honest. But I think going back to the old days, I'd love to say we were telling a story, but it's impossible to do in 160 characters. And I think the scale and reach and data that goes with mobile video, you really start to tell a story. And I think all of the tracking metrics and attribution that we put in place as well really allows us to measure that story. And I think this is why mobile video is going to be absolutely key to every brand engagement moving forward.
No, I agree with that.
I think pulling the two topics together as well, a key piece that gets missed in mobile, specifically in mobile video and also in viewability, is creative. Nobody ever has a conversation in programmatic about creativity. I think the two examples that Chris used in his presentation just now illustrated that fantastically well. The Cadbury Gorilla is still watched on YouTube, on social media, wherever, and the longest version of that ad was well over a minute. But it was a perfect execution. It was great branding, it was great content, it was engaging. It even made some of us think we liked Phil Collins because they got the creative execution right to then gain the engagement to keep that ad living years on, versus compare the Meerkat, where they've been incredibly successful because they've used their timing right. You know, they do small 6, 15-second snapshots within the relevance of the space that they have on ITV in particular. And in our world, we're still not embracing that. We're still just repurposing a 30-second TV ad in front of a 15-second piece of content, and that just doesn't work. And particularly in mobile, the user won't tolerate it.
That's because our world is slightly deluded by the fact that we all work in media to an extent. But it's true, true. You think, you know, sight, sound, and motion video kind of is the most empowering form of medium for brand advertising. TV always has been. So we've always worked in a world where TV is siloed in the TV department and digital is digital. But from a consumer point of view, they don't live in that world. They don't really care where they watch video. They just want to watch video on any screen, any device. And that's what's really, really changing. And what we're not doing as an industry is working out how we can reach audiences in a cross-screen world. Or what we're trying to do is that. And also what we're not doing from a creative point of view is actually how we try and engage and have a conversation with those audiences in the cross-screen world. The amount of advertisers that come to us and say, let's do mobile. We know it's on the exponential increase. Here's a 30-second ad. Here's a 6-second ad. It's crazy. And I think that education point is really the only way that we're going to move the industry on.
Or you could do as well. I mean, as a publisher, we have skip ad function. So, you know, with that confident, I mean, it obviously has an effect on view-through rates, but if people are constantly pushing creative through that's not appropriate to the environment, then, you know, it is going to go back to this idea that it's irritating the consumer. So I think publisher, you should have the confidence, you know, to put the skip ad on and then push it back to the creatives and say, well, if you're constantly pushing this stuff through that's not appropriate and doesn't sit well in this content, this is what will happen. We find, you know, our view-through rates are not that bad still on mobile. It has a good impact on click-through rates, but I think that's people trying to close it.
It's all relative.
Sorry. We see a difference on our desktop version. So view-through rate tends to be higher on desktop than our mobile. And I think it is back to this issue of some of the conversations that's gone on before. You know, your mobile's a very personal space. So it can become a big irritation if an ad's there in front of something that you've elected to see, whether it's a funny 30-second clip or whatever. You know, the ad can become an irritant if it's a stopgap to seeing that as quickly as you want to see it.
I think there's a number of different challenges for us. I mean, on average, we start to see 94% of mobile video views happen when the phone is in a mute state. So you tend to lose a lot of the creative around running a TVC into this environment. So when I start to look at that, and I think a lot of the challenges for, particularly for media owners, is it down to the creative to be a little bit more understanding and actually embrace mobile as a whole new medium?
I think that is most definitely the case. And I think it was interesting, the previous speaker mentioned, you know, how I suppose the job of media agencies is going down because of programmatic lines and creativity is becoming more important. But actually, interestingly enough, we're seeing, not just from our space, but your space, Ben, and all our other competitors, media agencies actually understanding programmatic, I suppose, a bit better than creative agencies because they live in that world and they have the data. And that is leading to us forging, I suppose, our own creative offerings so we can be beginning to bring creativity to programmatic platforms. So I think the existing lines between creative and media agencies are really coming down. I think you'll see that maybe the change in types of work output moving not just from buying ads, but actually advising clients how to make the maximum out of a particular platform and channel. And I think that's critical in getting the most benefit. I think taking a standard TV ad and sticking it out on your mobile phone is probably the worst thing that we could do. In the same way, I remember thinking of seeing the first ever TV ad actually that ran ever in the world, I've seen it online, and it was just a flat piece of paper, a black screen that played there for 60 seconds, and that's how it always starts. You know, we start a new channel, it takes us a few years to work out how to use it. Same pattern.
Programmatic, you know, you buy media through software. That's what programmatic is, and I think it's taken us 4 years to really kind of drill down to actually what it actually means. I think it started very, very complex, but it's not. It's buying media through software, and actually, whether that's kind of desktop, whether that's mobile, whether it's programmatic TV, whether it's digital out of home, ultimately you're buying media through software, and kind of that media plan and buying generally sits within a media agency. Perhaps it would sit in a programmatic team. Will that be the case in a year's time? Probably not. We sit in clients' teams because other people know and understand those brands. But using software to execute medium, and the opportunities that gives to engage with the customers in different ways, that needs to relate back to the creative piece and the execution piece from a buying point of view.
But does the creative teams involved in this, do they view this as a threat?
Potentially.
I don't work in
There was a whole big piece in campaign the other week from a head of a creative agency that says creative agencies don't understand programmatic creative. We need to take hold of this space. Media agencies are well ahead of us. So I'd say that they probably are feeling the threat.
So I think we've all had a few years in media, and back in the day when it was IOs and fax machines, you engaged with the creative agency. Whether, you know, I've spent my career in technology and on the media owner side, but you still spoke with them. And I think somewhere along the way, whilst we've all got obsessed with technology and acronyms and abbreviations, that bit's just been forgotten.
So when I look at the, consumption and kind of market share, so from Mediacom's point of view, and I just grabbed these figures as I was running out the door earlier, but around about 23% of our programmatic revenues on mobile is now in video. Is that good, bad, ugly, and what do we need to do to increase our spend with yourselves?
What do you need to do?
How come?
It's got a few
Sounds
hours
low.
there,
We should have lunch.
what challenge? Yeah.
But I think if you, Mary Meeker brought out some stats a couple of weeks ago saying that media consumption generally reflects the percentage of media spend. In all forms of media, whether it's press, whether it's TV, whether it's digital, apart from mobile. If you look, and I think it's a US figure, if you look at the US, the media amount of time media spent is 25% of individuals' time, but the media spend is 8%. So there's a big difference in mobile in terms of actually catching up to actually the consumption piece alongside the spend piece. That makes
So as we're all armed with these stats and figures and understand that consumer requirement doesn't match the value spend in mobile, what do we need to do about that?
educate the agencies.
Okay.
I think stop treating it like a special beast as well. I think there is still the mobile part of many businesses is the bit in the cupboard.
Yeah.
It's what digital used to be sort of 10 years ago. So I think it all needs to pull together as more of a homogenous view on video, more so than device, because the device division is less and less relevant.
Yeah.
You're on a mobile, full stop, and I think the technical pieces underpinning it are less and less disparate. As we're all adjusting to the changes that have been made recently by some of the powerhouses changing their flash rules, and HTML5 is becoming more prevalent. I think the technical disparities in how you run one campaign across multiple devices are starting to erode. So as we make that easier and there's less friction in buying a campaign that runs across digital, that spend will inevitably go up, and that's what we're already starting to see.
I think we need to look at formats as well. I mean, personally, I've got a bit of a mission to get rid of the 320 by 50 and replace it with a native ad. And this is, you know, there's nothing stopping us doing this with video and everything else as well. You know, these large interstitial formats that we see, I don't think they're particularly engaging or effective.
Do you think there's an understanding of what the inventory makeup of mobile is, though? You look at the difference between mobile web and app. It always seems to be, ironically, kind of a nerviness around being an app, which is the complete opposite of actually consumer point of view.
But if you look at the large sources of app inventory, they're generally games, or they're generally kind of utility apps or social networking or things like that. I think a lot of the planners inside the agencies don't necessarily understand the skills of what these apps bring for them in terms of the campaign and the campaign objectives. And that's, you know, it is what it is. I think that's part education, and I think it's part the supply side makes changing to get better formats on mobile web.
Excellent.
I think working out best creative formats for using it. I mean, mobile really consists of display advertising, whatever format it is, and actually, I think as a person who uses my mobile phone to consume a lot of content, and although I talk about a lot of mobile advertising, actually the experience is pretty bad. And I love the idea of content, of native. I think it offers great opportunities. I think just not interrupting someone's natural use behaviour on a device, working out how to engage with them in a way that they actually want to be engaged with, whether that will be serving an ad that's relevant in location-wise, whether that's understanding when the right moment within the reading of an article is to actually serve a message, if it is a display ad, if it's a video ad, if it's another piece of content, whatever it is. I think we've just got to not just tick a box and run mobile and that's it, job done, because I think we've tried that and it's not worked.
Excellent. And with that note, I think we could go into great depths of detail with that. If I could just take in the closing moments of the panel session from you, you're looking forward to 2016. What is both good and bad? What's going to happen in the next year?
You're asking me?
Yeah, if everybody could.
What's good? I think we're going to obviously see programmatic grow a lot. I think we'll probably start using some of the people on this platform potentially a bit more. I think that the third-party data sources, which is the most interesting part of programmatic for us, really being much more intelligent about understanding what is the right information to know about an individual and when to use that to determine placing a message, whatever that would be. I think that's going to grow significantly. And then matching different devices, I think, is a huge area for growth for next year. So following a user across phone to desktop to tablet, potentially to TV, I think that's huge for us.
I think it's all quite exciting, actually. I think there's this massive kind of shift and disruption that's happening in the consumer world as people move to multiple screen, multiple device. I think that creates a challenge for brands and advertisers. Okay, how do I reach those consumers across screen?
Yep.
Which provides a really, really exciting reframing or recalibration opportunity for both brands and advertisers and how they execute their media. And central to all of this is always going to be mobile, because that world has changed in terms of actually now becoming the first vehicle of media consumption. I think that provides wonderful opportunities for media, brand, creative, all of us.
I don't often say this, and I owe myself £1, but I do think that next year will be the year of mobile.
Oh, God.
I think this is where mobile becomes its teenage years, and I think part of this is going to be driven by both good and bad from the debate that we're seeing on ad blockers. I think part of the ad blocking debate, we will get better creative, and I think part of the ad blocking debate, we will start to see a better conversation between publishers and consumers about the value of content.
Unfortunately, I think we're sitting the wrong way around, because I would say bad if somebody says it will be the year of mobile. We never had the year of PC. We never had the year of laptop. The world evolves, it evolves naturally, and actually the consumer evolves our world, and we need to keep pace. I think it would also be bad, if not foolish, that we don't take massive advantage that this is a relatively still a new sector. Programmatic video is still at the beginning of its journey, so we need to take the lessons that everybody's already gone through with display. Good would be engagement with the creative part of the industry and really closing that circle so that we're planning and conceiving brand creative very differently. And I think good would be making it a little bit easier, less tech babble, less complication, less friction, make it easy to trade right the way through the food chain.
And purely from a publisher point of view then, I mean, I don't know how many other publishers are here, but it took us almost 2 years just to get mobile sorted. It has been a long, arduous task, and we're still not completely properly there, but we were wasting so many impressions. And I know I have spoken to other publishers and they found it really quite difficult. So for me, it's still a thrill when I actually see a mobile ad on our app. So I think that for us, 2016 will be the year of more growth. We already work with, all the partners, so we're doing everything sort of programmatically anyway. So for us, we'll just sort of develop that. We're developing native on our site, so again, that's a new area for us. So we're pretty much embracing all the things that we've kind of been talking about today, and hopefully even better sort of creatives.
Excellent. Thank you. So it looks very positive.
What about you, Ben? Sorry.
My things that, I go along the creative route. I'm actually kind of embracing the roadblocks that are being thrown at us and challenging us to do better creative. We have the capabilities to do that, and I think that's what's going to hail this industry and really keep us going. So maybe next year will be the year of mobile. My bank manager certainly hopes so. But I think looking at measurability, what we can do to actually enhance the ad tech that's available to us, new technologies, and how we understand measurability, viewability, how we discount the negative side of this, and even measuring irritability as a consumer measurement maybe for next year. So thank you all very much. Thank you to the panel.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.